Hello again, Cape Cod and the islands. I'm Greg Anderson. You know why voting for, say, a select person in your town is very important, or a senator, and of course, president. We know those are important votes, but why is it important for you to vote for our next district attorney? Well, that's what's happening here on the Cape. The first time in 20 years this job is up for grabs. After a three-way race in the primary, current assistant district attorney in Barnstable County, Dan Higgins, won out and is seeking your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. Welcome, Attorney Dan Higgins. Thank you so
Greg.
much.
Very nice of you to have me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. So tell us a little bit. Now, your campaign is pretty robust. You're out there. How's the campaign going? Let me ask you that.
Good. Yeah. Obviously, as you mentioned, we had a primary, a three-way primary, and that took a lot of work. We were out there, and it's my first time campaigning for any office, so it was a good training for me. Yeah. It was a very interesting experience, but a great one. You get to meet a lot of people you may not otherwise meet. In running for office. You get to be out in the community. How
do you do that with a full-time job and running for office? I mean, and you got a pretty powerful job. You're busy.
Well, thank you, Greg. I think it's a very meaningful job. Full-time job, full-time campaign, and a wife and a little baby at home.
Oh.
So it's a real juggling act.
Yeah.
I've taken a leave from the office in order to
it.
campaign full-time because I realized I needed to devote my full attention to the campaign here in the final stretch.
Yeah.
So I'm using all my time for the campaign and, of course, family at home as well.
Good. Can I call you Dan or Attorney? Okay.
Please do.
So, Dan, what is inspiring you to run for this district attorney job?
Greg, I've been a prosecutor for 13 years. I went to law school to become a prosecutor. I was lucky enough to be offered a job down here after interviewing. I love the job. Just like any other job. There are some slow days, but then there are very meaningful, impactful days, meaningful to a victim and their family. I love this job. When Mike O'Keefe said he was retiring, we had a difficult discussion amongst the senior prosecutors. What should we do here? And he didn't tell us what to do. He said, you can all talk and decide what you want to do, if anything. And I decided to raise my hand and run. I knew I was putting my name out there, my reputation, going through the political process, and I decided that it was worth it. The job requires a professional, experienced prosecutor to lead the office. The other professionals in this office have been there 5, 20 years, and I think they deserve a prosecutor who knows how the office works, who has that relationship with law enforcement, and who can lead them going forward into the future here.
Can you give us a brief summary? For those who are saying, all right, district attorney, I can vote for that. What does the district attorney's office do?
Greg, we prosecute cases with the goal of protecting community safety. That's what we do. We spend much of our careers in the courtroom, and it's not always covered in the media. Trials can be long. First session, the arraignment session, very busy. There's not always a camera or media there reporting. Often all that's reported is the result, what the judge decided in the end, on a bail or on a sentencing. But I would love to see more people in the courtroom watching what we do and seeing the arguments being made by those ADAs on the front line every day, and those very impactful statements by victims to the court at the time of sentencing. That's what we do. We prosecute crime. We try and keep the community safe by doing so. We also have community outreach teams, so we're out there in the schools, educating to the schools that will have us, warning kids about things such as texting, social media dangers, bullying in the schools. So there is a proactive side of the job as well.
On your campaign material on your website, you say, quote, after years of experience working under District Attorney Michael O'Keefe, Attorney Higgins is uniquely positioned to make positive change in the lives of families, seniors, young people, and businesses on Cape Cod. Can you give me any specifics as to what you would do to make those positive changes that you're referring to here?
Sure, Greg. I think one of the largest issues facing the Cape and Islands certainly is the opiate crisis. Fentanyl is a big danger in our community. I think everyone knows a family member or a neighbor's family member who has been affected by the crisis. The fentanyl presents a very deadly risk. As part of that, I want to look at what's called a hub model. Plymouth has initiated it, a Canadian model. It's bringing together all of the social services, the nonprofits that are working in education and treatment for the opioid crisis, bringing them together at the county level for an organized effort. One of the things we've done in our office in the last couple of years is we purchased a data management system. Doesn't sound very special, a data management system, but the goal of it is very interesting. It's called the Critical Incident Management System. We paid for the software and we paid for the yearly fee to keep the software up to date. We asked all the police departments to sign on. Almost all of them have signed on the Cape. And the goal is to track data in terms of overdoses. What can be done with that software is many things. One thing currently being utilized by some departments that have an outreach team is when an overdose occurs somewhere such as Hyannis, but their residence is Dennis. The Dennis police will go out to that house and offer social services, treatment services to that individual who may be back from the hospital and to their roommates and family members who may also have substance abuse problems in the household. That is one thing that I can bring to the table, is bringing that hub model here and improving the use of that critical incident management system. I also think we can devote more effort to an organized program in the juvenile court. They do not get a lot of attention, in part because they're not publicized. The courtroom is not open to the public, so we don't ruin the reputation of the juvenile at such a young age. But we do need an organized structure there to offer, and I think the DA's office can bring some resources to bear there to make an organized program that those juveniles can go through.
So when you look at those changes, is the hub model currently active right now, or is it something you would bring to the office?
So we're in discussions with the county right now, the county health department. Plymouth has begun it, and to bring it all together. The county has a smaller version of it right now. I would like to bring that Plymouth version, the Canadian model, to the Cape in an effort to organize all the various services, nonprofits that are out there, and focus them to where we see if there's a bad batch of fentanyl going around a certain town, we can divert the services to that town. Those social services can go to those doors, do the outreach, and that's the goal of looking at that data to see where the resources need to go to.
So when you get to tracking of that magnitude, it obviously is a result of something that has not been working. Is it just the same offender returning? Is it law enforcement being kind of behind the gate ball on what's really happening in the opioid situation? What brings you to that point?
You know, I don't think either of those things. I think just what the reality is that the substance abuse issue with fentanyl is a broader topic than just prosecuting the dealers. Our job is to prosecute the dealers for certain. They need to know that there is a serious, heavy penalty for peddling dangerous narcotics to our vulnerable citizens. They need to know that. So we can't take our foot off of that pedal. But we also need to bring to bear education in the schools to warn the students the risks of fentanyl, and also the hub model idea to organize the treatment efforts. Fentanyl is such a small, tiny substance and such a powerful one in that small size. We cannot prevent it from coming over the bridge onto the Cape completely, no matter the amount of drug investigations or car stops that the police do, and they do good work, that drug interdiction we call it. It's coming over the border from Mexico, we believe. It's a small, potent substance. I do not think we can stop it completely because the market is so great for it, the profit is so great, that once a ring is brought down, such as the Naughty Block gang in Hyannis several years ago, and we work with our federal partners to decide where they should be prosecuted in federal court or in our superior court in Barnstable here on the Cape. We'll go with where the best penalty will be for that level of drug dealing. But no matter how much we do, another drug dealer will fill those shoes because of the profit to be made. The penalties need to be real for them, and at the same time, we need to be doing the outreach, education, and organization of treatment services to combat this crisis.
So I told you before we started taping that I was on the, I'm a big jury duty fan. If you could pay me to do that all the time, I'm going to hit you up for this.
I think it's a $7 fee.
Yeah, it is a $7 fee, but that was a great cup of coffee, I'm telling you that. The job is so important, but when I was there, and I was also on the grand jury in Barnstable County, it blew my mind how much drugs drug cases were coming through. It was almost like, geez, another drug case is coming through. So that makes me think of workload. How much, or caseload, how much of your office is working on drugs versus other things? Like, how does that look?
I would say it's an equal portion because, Greg, obviously, as being in the grand jury process, you've seen presentations most likely. We have murders, we have bad domestic violence, we have child assaults, we have adult sexual assaults, we have drug trafficking. We need to devote our efforts to all of those areas. We can't turn our back on any one just because we want to focus on the other. We need to keep our foot on the pedal against violent offenders and against those peddling narcotics in our street. We have a state police unit attached to our office, Cape and Islands Detectives Unit. Those troopers are equally divided to investigating homicides and investigating narcotics. The narcotics side works with local partners from the local police departments who are willing to donate one of their officers to the task force. They work on search warrants, on surveillance, on trying to interdict those drugs and make those seizures. We also have a DEA task force that we're partnered with through our detective unit on the Cape, also doing good work. So we have federal partnerships, we have state level organizations, we have the local police departments. Barnstable Police do a lot of drug work in the Barnstable area, and it's their good work that sets the tone out there, that dealers know the risk because they can be caught and then the penalties are serious. There's the other issue of asset forfeiture, which we try to include. It's separate and apart from the criminal prosecution, but we try to take that profit away from someone who made their profits off of peddling fentanyl on the streets of the Cape and Islands and use it back into the local police departments doing those investigations.
Okay, interesting. Should you win, your two predecessors, Rollins and O'Keefe, span over 45 years in office, and you would be the third in that time frame. Much of your professional career has been in the O'Keefe administration. Some would say that a vote for Higgins is a vote for the way it's always been. It's kind of another go around, even from a political party perspective. You're a Republican, they're Republicans. What do you say to those people who say it's just going to be the same old, same old?
Well, Greg, my name is Dan Higgins. Not Rollins and not O'Keefe. I certainly respect those gentlemen. This is a very professional office. I can tell you this. When I was hired, I interviewed with a team of prosecutors here, a hiring panel. They're the ones who recommend I be hired out of 12 applicants for one position. I was very lucky at that time. And when I met with the district attorney after his prosecutors recommended I be hired, I didn't know him, first time meeting. He told me something and it resonates with me today. He said, your job is to do the right thing. There's not a rule book, there's not a playbook. Listen to your senior prosecutors, listen to your victims, make the best decisions you can in each case. You will come under scrutiny at some point in your career. Could be from the media, could be from the defendant's camp who wanted a lesser penalty, could be from anyone. And he said, as long as you've done your job for the right reasons, then you've done your job well. And I think that's an amazing thing. Part of why I decided to run, Greg, because obviously it's a big risk. I could have stayed, ducked my head and just stayed in the office and toiled away. Yeah. I'm taking a big risk. I have a fairly new home. I'm married only a couple years. We have a young baby, Charlie, who's about 11 months old now, at the end of this month.
Beautiful.
And, I'm very lucky to be where I am right now, but it's a big risk. I decided it was worth it. Across the country over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a movement for prosecutor offices, and the races have been very contested. The model being brought under the progressive model, although well-intentioned, has not lowered crime rates. Crime rates have risen in the major cities. We've seen memos come out that say these crimes won't be prosecuted, and to the line ADAs, you will not arraign these crimes, and you will not ask for bail on these crimes. And Greg, unfortunately what it does is it sends the wrong message on the street level. It sends the wrong message to shop owners that someone's not charged or arraigned for the crime that they committed. It sends the wrong message to the people who may perpetrate these crimes, even if they are low-level ones, because then they believe that they can do it again or do the next thing that's more serious because the court didn't get involved, no prosecutor got involved, no judge got involved and was talking to them about what penalties they could face here. Instead, the model I believe in is treating people as individuals appropriately. I believe if there's probable cause and a complaint issues, you arraign the case. And we look at Mental health, we take that into consideration. Sometimes those people are not arraigned when we realize they don't have the capacity to know right from wrong. We look at veteran status through what's called, used to be the Valor Act, now the Brave Act, and I've done diversions through that program. And as part of this process, I've had people come up to me who I don't recognize or remember thanking me for years ago for helping them, that they received that benefit as a veteran and they have not had trouble since. It's a great thing to hear when you start campaigning and meeting people out in the community that you don't see again in the courtroom. Really is a great thing. So that's the model I believe in, Greg, is to treat people fairly, bring them into the court system, and those who will work with us, we can work with, whether that is diversion, probation, or for serious crimes, incarceration.
There's a lot of power in this job, and we know that, as you were saying, the DA was telling you that sometimes you're going to take it on the chin publicly, or with those within the court systems. But you've seen this office from the inside, and I'm curious about that dynamic of you're going to get pressure from people to say, look, hey, come on, I'm a political guy in town, don't chase this one, or back away from that, or as you were even suggesting from a more progressive setting, there's a little bit of, well, let's not chase this or chase that for these political reasons. But you're in the hot seat. So if you are the DA and someone is approaching you saying, look, I'm going to put some heat on you right now, Republican, how do you respond to those risks of conflict of interest?
Well, what I'd say, Greg, is, it's interesting, the process in this state. It is a partisan race, the way that the election process is set up, but I don't believe this is a partisan position. It's a professional one. So although the election system is set that way by Massachusetts, I believe this is a professional position. Once you are in, you are beholden to the public, and you are to make your decisions based on the law and the facts, and not based on any politics or racial identity or anything like that. Our decisions are devoid of all that. I would resist any pressure that comes to me. I will not be beholden to anyone. I've been a supervisor in this office about 7 years. I supervised 5 district courts across the Cape and Islands: Falmouth, Barnstable, Orleans, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. And as part of that, I supervised a team of 10 prosecutors at any given moment. I've dealt with problems. I've dealt with people who are upset about a case, whether that be an attorney, a victim complaint, etc. And I enjoy that process. I really do. That's part of why I asked to remain as the district court chief for so long. I love dealing with people. I love trying to come to an agreement where possible and make sure that we're doing the right job, because we are responsible to the public. If I'm elected district attorney, my door will be open to everyone, no matter what group that is, what political party. I will have my door open, I will hear everyone out, and I will make decisions fairly based upon the facts and the community safety.
What will keep you up at night should you win?
The DA has to get up in the middle of the night. Luckily, it's pretty rare, but for homicides that occur, often those can be in the middle of the night. And the DA is responsible with his state police detective unit, because the district attorney is in charge of those murder investigations. And our SPDU responds to unattended deaths, and where there's suspicious or foul play suspected, the district attorney is involved. We're involved in reviewing search warrants. We're involved in going to that scene, speaking with the local chief and local PD to try and get the facts on the ground. So obviously the phone may ring in the middle of the night, and my job will be to put on my clothes, get in the car, and respond to that scene.
So from a mental perspective, if you will, from your heart perspective, what's going to keep you up at night?
Community safety. What we all feel. When you go to bed in your home, whether something is bothering you, someone's been after you or critical of you, or you're going through a divorce, you're going through a troubled time in life, you want to know that your community, and that comes down to just our house, Greg, we want to know that our house is safe, because we want to know our family is safe in that house. What will keep me up at night is that we lock up violent offenders, we prosecute them appropriately. When police bring a case to us, our job is to evaluate it and handle it right. We treat the defendant fairly, but when we need to seek serious penalties, we will. We use statutes such as the Armed Career Criminal Statute to enhance penalties for those people who haven't listened to the court, who may have been given probation early on in their criminal enterprise, and they didn't listen. They violated. Maybe they did a little house of correction time. And when it ratchets up and they don't listen, we send them to grand jury, an experience that you went through, those serious cases that not everyone in the community may know about. Those child cases, adult cases, they can weigh on people. They can weigh on investigators, weigh on prosecutors.
Yeah.
Those things that we know, and we meet with victims in private about their feelings, whether they want to address the court or not, whether they're willing to testify or too scared. Those moments have stayed with me. I've met with people who have been within a moment of dying, where actually have been saved by other people in the community. One case, breaking down a door to save a woman's life in the middle of a stabbing. Those things weigh on you. And in the background, that's why we do this job.
Let's talk a little bit about resources, funding. How, in your opinion, you have resources, financial resources to run your office. How are you guys doing down there, and what would you do differently as it relates to perhaps even from a budget perspective for that office?
Sure. So since I become an assistant district attorney, I was hired at about $37,000 after going through college and law school. It's not a way to make money, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Luckily, the salaries have come up with the help of the legislature and the governor. Those salaries have come up to about $62,000 for a starting prosecutor. Still not as high as other states, but it's improving, and that's good. The DA's office has a budget. A lot of that budget goes towards salaries to pay the staff, towards rent for the buildings. But then we have a discretionary portion of our budget that we can dole out to those good nonprofits in our community doing work. We do have to choose because there's not that much money to go everywhere. But we try and back good causes within the community that are helping young people, because the earlier that we can help someone, I think the better results that we'll see. And some of that is through the Boys and Girls Club, through the YMCA, through mental health services. We try and use that money to help these small programs get on their feet to help the community.
Being a media guy like myself, I like access to the source. I like to, here's something that's going on, I want to talk to the source. The DA tends to be the source in particularly those high crime situations at 2 in the morning when something is going on and there are satellite trucks all around. But just even on a day-to-day basis, my personal observation is that the current DA's office can be a little elusive, not necessarily pleased to stand up and talk in front of a camera. Perhaps staying behind a written statement over and I know there's a process to that, but can you tell me what a DA Higgins routine would be like as it relates to working with the media, being more transparent, etc.?
Sure. As a prosecutor, it's a tough balance because, we have certain duties on us, ethical obligations. We can't taint the jury pool. We can't try and convict someone in the media, in the newspaper. And often, as is after a horrific crime is reported, everyone wants to jump to conclusions. We have to ensure that the person gets a fair trial. So it's a balancing act for us. Yes, sometimes there's a media release, a written statement that goes out, and we try and put in the pertinent details there, or the current administration does. I will try my best to have an open door to the media where if the media calls, they get a call back. Either we pick up the phone or we call them right back. And if the answer is we're still working on it, that'll be the answer. Yeah. But I do believe in transparency. I do believe in getting facts out there that are appropriate, because we can't try the case in the media, but I think one of the most important things that the community wants to know, and likely the media, is that the community's safe at that moment. That someone may be under arrest or the crime is solved for the moment. They want to know that. And there's an immediacy to that I understand. My door will be open.
I'm going to hit you. We've got just a couple minutes left. I've got a ton of questions for you here.
Fire away.
So I got to be careful on time here. I want to hit you with race. We talk about race over in the DA's, in the sheriff's race. There's racism within incarceration and all of that. Can you tell me where you see race to be a problem in your line of work within the prosecutorial end of things within criminal law?
Sure. The most important thing for me to tell the listeners is that race may not play into our decisions. Our decisions as prosecutor have to be cold to the facts, to the history, to the record. When we're making a bail decision or making a sentencing recommendation, we're doing so based on the person's history, lack of history, or history of not listening to the court, maybe victim input on a violent crime, a personal crime, and also how are we going to keep the community safe? What message needs to be sent to this individual? It's important that we treat individuals as individuals. Certainly, racial statistics are an important topic in our community and one that is a broader issue than just a prosecutor's office. We, as a DA's office, need to make sure we're treating people fairly. We do that by not allowing race to be part of our decisions. It's not allowed. If someone did that, they wouldn't be an ADA anymore. Number two, we have open courtrooms in this country, and that is essential that the public and the media can see what the government is doing, and that's the court system, not just a prosecutor, the judge, and everyone there, probation. It has to be open to the public so that the public and media can judge the quality of court system that we have. It's the best we have in this country rather than anywhere else, I would say. What we can do, work we can do on racial statistics, and it's an important topic, and I've seen studies both ways. I've seen it both ways. I think the court system would be the ultimate arbiter of taking in racial data because they're in a neutral standing, the court system. Not the DA's office and not the defendant. It's an adversarial relationship when they're charged with a crime and they're arraigned. It would be inappropriate for me to send a prosecutor down to lockup potentially or into the audience to ask someone, how do you racially identify? I think their answer would be, step away, sir, or ma'am.
But you do look at race as it relates to juries. You look at race as it relates to those statistics that you're talking about and how that is going to impact the way you prosecute somebody, not necessarily because they are of that race, we're going to prosecute them differently, but there are profiles, there are real dynamics. Do you believe we have racism issues and problems on the Cape?
You know, I can't speak for everyone on Cape Cod. I can speak for the prosecutors that I know and I've worked with for years. Their hearts are in a very good place. They're hired in this office not based on their political party, not based on who they know. They're young prosecutors. They come from a law institution. They get their legal degree. They come to us because they want to help their community and they're not in it for the money. We make sure that race doesn't play into our decisions. I think racial statistics are important. It's important for our community to address that as a whole. And then, once we have reliable data, we then need to do the hard question of what has led to that result. Is it socioeconomic? Is it profiling? A lot of what the police do is reactionary, a lot of it. It's not targeting someone, it's reactionary. Someone calls 911 and they make an arrest based on probable cause. They do have to make tough decisions as to primary offenders in a domestic situation, et cetera. But I think it's an important topic. It's one I'm open to discussing. And it's one I think the court system could make some headway on keeping reliable data for us to look at.
Okay. Attorney Higgins, Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
I appreciate you coming in. Hopefully, this discussion, my friends, has helped you to understand this one candidate's perspective and why this race is so important to all of us here on Cape Cod and the islands. Do not forget to vote on November 8th. I'm Greg Anderson. I'll see you soon.
The views expressed in this program are the views of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the SCTV staff or board of directors.